What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Get Your Bell Rung Football Podcast. He is Kevin Reynolds. I am Bobby Wall, and we are here to talk all things football and hit you with some takes that might rattle you up a bit. We have been on about a 2-month hiatus, but we are back. We are excited, ready to get things rolling again, man. Kevin, how you doing?
Doing well, buddy. Summer coming to a close. I finally get to breathe a little bit, and I felt like it was time to get back on the horse here.
Yeah, you've been so busy. We haven't even really exchanged too much text messages. We have, very little football between us over the last couple months.
I bet we've talked less football over the last 2 months than any 2-month period in about the last, about 13 years or so?
I was more than a decade for sure.
Yeah. I just, it's a good thing. Business is good. But I rack up the hours. For example, 2 weeks ago, I told you I was at the club for 80 hours. It's just, it gets to be a bit much, but it's football time. So I want to get back into this.
Yes. Preseason.
And next year, we need to come up with a plan that we can do something to work around my insane schedule.
Maybe it'd be like it was last year and it'll just rain every other day.
That was the thing. Rain was my friend last year, but this year it almost never rains. If it does, it's in the middle of the night. And it doesn't affect me. There was like a 28-day span where I only had 1 day off. If it's again, great for business, bad for every other aspect of my life.
Well, hopefully you've been able to catch up a little bit. I'm not sure if you've looked at the running back landscape lately, but it is an absolute mess. It is as murky as I ever remember. We got the Jets with Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall. We've got the Patriots signed Zeke, so we got him there with Ramondre Stevenson. We've got Jonathan Taylor's not in camp. Josh Jacobs, who no one even knows where he's at. I haven't heard anything about him in a while. It's insane, man. And I mentioned Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall because the Jets signed Dalvin Cook just a couple days ago. How do you feel about them? Right now, I think Dalvin Cook is RB13, and Breece Hall is RB13. Dalvin Cook is RB28.
I have on Fantasy Pros right now. I think they're actually currently today 14th and 32nd, but same type thing. I'll tell you what I think of those. I wouldn't touch either one of them.
Really?
I don't want them at those numbers. History's taught us one thing: running backs, unless you're Adrian Peterson, a freak of nature, do not bode well their first year back from an ACL tear. So I just can't understand. I know he's healthy, but yeah, they were saying last year Dobbins was pretending he was super healthy at this point. No way I'm touching that. And even if he was healthy, how do we know Dalvin Cook? This could be one of those flip-flop situations at any given week. One of them has, 40 yards. The other one has 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. I can't do it. And the same with their receivers there. Their receiver group is quite impressive. There's about 7 guys that would that are actual names. Like, how do you work that fantasy-wise? It's great for the team, but it's awful for us. I'm not touching any of that.
And Cook's hurt right now too. He still can't practice for another week.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's old.
For a running back, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we think of him like he's still this young stud, like he's the number, potential top 3 pick. Well, guess what? That was 5 years ago. It's just not the case anymore. It was great for them to get him for depth. Why not? But I just can't touch those
28.
guys. He's 28?
Yep. So, man, I certainly don't like Breece Hall at his current ADP, and I think you have it on standard scoring for your Fantasy Pros ADP.
I might not have re-clicked on it.
Yeah, it's all good. Because half point they are RB13 and RB28.
Yeah, they are.
I don't think they're going to stick there. I think Hall's going to drop some unless he comes out here and looks great. If he gets any limited preseason work. I think Cook might rise some. I could see him being somewhere between RB, I don't know, 8. If they both were between RB 18 and 22, I could probably see that. But man, it's a gamble. if you're getting them though, in the third round, then you got to weigh who's your RB1. Did you get a stud guy in the first round? Then I might be willing to take one of those guys at the, third, fourth, fifth round. But I'm leaning your way. I'm leaning towards I might just skip out on all of it. And obviously I have them ranked, but when it comes down to drafting, I mean, do I really want to take that gamble with two guys who's not only their health is in question, but their workload is going to be in question? I mean,
and on top of it all, we have no idea what this offense is even going to do. Everybody's anointing them like the next greatest show on turf. Like, none of these people really played together. It's this hodgepodge. It's all been brought together. There's these super high expectations now. They might go out there and go 7-10 and be the 17th ranked offense. But people are the capital they're putting into Rodgers, Wilson, both the running backs, various others. It just seems insane to me. I'm like, please do take them. I'm going to take someone that I think is a much safer option. I might not get that ceiling, but I'm not going to get that floor either.
Now let me get because there's a serious ceiling for both of these guys. Now let me give you the positive spin. So Dalvin Cook last year was not very efficient. He was 51st in fantasy points per opportunity, but he had a workhorse role in Minnesota, and he was still sixth in rushing yards with 1,173. Well, with both of these guys working hand in hand, maybe he can raise his efficiency because he's not going to get that, he's not going to get 20 carries a game. He might be able to do more with, say, 14 to 17 carries a game, give him a little less of a workload. Maybe he's catching the ball more. And now Breece Hall, he was the opposite. He was first in yards per touch and seventh in fantasy points per opportunity when he, before he went down for injury. And if we remember, Nathaniel Hackett, the last time he worked with Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon were both top 24 running backs. By season's end, I could see both of these guys being top 24 running backs. I definitely think that is in the cards, but you're not going to know when. Maybe Cook goes out and has 85 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, and Breece Hall has,
that's what I just said, right? You don't know.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
You play the wrong one every week. It's the classic thing. If you have 2 running backs, you have none.
Yes,
you have them both, you have none because you got to. Or you do the thing that some people do. I had that one year where I had Jones and Dillon. I just played them both each week when I had to. With the injuries, buys, I didn't really have a lot of choice.
And if you had a team to do it with, if both these guys are healthy, it might be this team.
But again, that ACL dude, it's not like he had a minor injury. He'll basically would be the second guy in history to come back and have a truly successful season after a torn ACL. Most guys, it's the next year.
Didn't Cooper Kupp do the same thing? Didn't he tear his ACL a couple years ago and then
came back? Right before the year that he blew up though?
Well, he had
I don't think it was.
A couple really good years. I'll look it up. But the next group I mentioned was Zeke and Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson, for me, I had him at RB10. I'm not sure that Zeke moves the needle very much for me. I think he affects Ramondre Stevenson a lot less than Dalvin Cook affects Breece Hall. Zeke was even less efficient than Dalvin Cook was. 62nd in yards a carry, 55th in fantasy points per opportunity. The thing that kept Zeke afloat, which always seems to be the case, double-digit touchdowns. He had 12 total touchdowns last year. I do think he's going to take goal line touchdowns away from Ramondre. But even last year, Stevenson was what? RB11, I think. He only had 6 touchdowns, if my memory serves me right. Yeah. But what he did have, which I know he had the passing game role, even with Damian Harris was there and Ramondre was the receiving back. He had 89 targets. Did you realize Ramondre had 89 targets? That was third behind Eckler and CMC for running backs.
I did not.
Right. I know. If he can keep that roll up, 89 targets will make you a top 10 back almost regardless of what you do anywhere else. Think about James White. Good grief. I don't know how many years ago that was, 6, 7, 8 years. He got barely any rushing attempts, but he was catching the ball out of the backfield all the time with Tom Brady in New England.
The thing I don't like about Ramondre is, he had 1,040 yards, but in 18 games, 172, 333 of it came in 2 games.
Right.
Can you count on that happening again? I don't know. Other than that,
think
it's games 25, 47, 39, 60, 26, 36, 8. That's the game he got hurt. 30, 42, 54. I don't want to touch him. I avoid Patriots running backs like I do Ravens wide receivers. Useless, pointless. Let somebody else deal with it. If you have him in your lineup the week he has that 172, great. If you had him in your lineup the next week when he had 30, okay, well, that's what you get with a New England running back.
Would it help sway you at all if I told you that the now offensive coordinator in New England, Bill O'Brien, when he was the head coach for the Houston Texans, he was there for 8 seasons, running the helm. His offenses were top 12 in rushing attempts 6 of those 8 years.
No, that won't help me at all because he's not the head coach.
He's running the offense.
Doesn't matter. Not the head coach. We've discussed this so many times. What was it? Gray, that guy. His last name was Gray. He had like
Jonas.
4 touchdowns.
Jonas Gray.
Like 4 touchdowns, 180 yards.
Jonas.
3 weeks later, he's traded or dumped, whatever it was, to the Dolphins.
I think he was on the Dolphins or something.
So I'm saying I can't get behind any of these guys because Stevens could have one of those huge weeks, and the next week he gets 7 touches. I just can't get behind it. I never will. And again, the fact those were his only 200-yard games. The most he had any other game was 76. Okay, and yeah, he did have some receiving yards, but they weren't many. 9 yards, 3 yards, -4 yards, 2 yards, 24 yards. He had, I think, only 3 games with more than 50 yards receiving. So it's not, I think these numbers, because the way he's used for the receiving, those little half points do add up, the receptions, but I don't know. I can't draft this guy that high. I can't in a 12-team league, I can't make him a number 1 back.
So if you have, say, the second pick in the 3rd round, because Stevenson's going around the 2-3 term. If you have the second pick in the 3rd round, and Stevenson's available. Now, obviously, you don't know who else is there, but would you be willing to take him there?
No.
Okay.
That's like what, pick 26? I'm not taking him at 26. There's no way.
Yeah, I don't mind him there. But then, so let's talk about Ezekiel Elliott. Right now, I think he's RB 44. He's going to pick 132. So we're talking, good grief, what is that? 11th round?
Any 12 teams around that, yeah. Yeah, I'm not touching him either. Somebody else can have him.
Yeah.
In my league record, he'll go for the minimum this year of $3.
Yeah, I'm willing to take the chance on Ramondre because I think he has a ceiling there. I love the receiving work. I think that Bill O'Brien's going to run the ball as much as he can, and I think Zeke is washed up. That being said, I understand your point as well. I was also very high on Stevenson last year, even with Damian Harris there.
Yeah, I was not. I said if he didn't have those 2 big games, even you cut them in half the production of those 2 big games, sweet Lord, he's down to 900 yards rushing. It's just, I mean, he drops so much just from 2 games. And I don't think it's him. I think he's a beast, actually. He's actually quite enjoyable to watch. I just think if you play for Bill Belichick, you and I, we hate the roller coaster. I mean, look at the numbers. Only 2 games over. Matter of fact, he only had 276 was his 3rd best total. He didn't even have a 3rd game above 76 yards. That's hard for me to put a guy at number 11.
Well, I can say that he had a nice stretch from week 3 until week 13, where he was running back for the week, 8, 22, 14, 2, 5, 10, 9, 14, and 8. And then week 13, he was RB 18. So, I mean, for that entire stretch, he was a top 24 running back. So
that is a nice stretch. When you look at those games, that's most of the season. Then when you look at some of the other ones, and it's just trash. And I just can't trust the dude. And I can't trust New England. It's not him. Put him on another team, I'm all for him. Put anybody on the Patriots, I can't get behind it unless you're Corey Dillon. And guess what? That was 20 couple years ago.
10. That's 10. Well, don't forget about LeGarrette Blount when he had, was it 18 touchdowns or something?
Yeah, but he didn't do anything else. They put him in at the 1 yard line, so Brady didn't have to sneak it in.
Yeah. So that's 10 straight weeks though for Ramondre being at worst at RB 22. And then he was RB 50, but then he jumped back up to RB 5 again.
I don't 1 week. And then he was 65, 40, 24. He has a 53 in there, a 28, a 23, a 23, a 26, a 40, a 57. I just can't get behind all that stuff.
Yeah, I think this talk is making me like Ramondre even more.
You like guys that finish 57th and 65th on the week? Or you're just hoping and praying that weeks 6 through 9 jump out every week?
Any running back that we talk about, any wide receiver that we talk about are going to dip. Remember Jamar Chase? That was a thing I had on that worried me with him last year. All the
it didn't worry me. It worried you.
Right. But so that's interesting. So he finished as wide receiver 50 a couple weeks. That didn't bother you, but it does bother you that Ramondre does.
Yes, because he plays for the Patriots.
Okay.
Jonathan Taylor. Receivers are more volatile anyway. There's too many other factors other than a guy just rushing.
That's interesting you say that, because all of the professionals, all of the analysts you hear, they've been screaming from the rooftops. And I posted about this on our page and on Twitter. Volatility is why wide receivers, you should go wide receiver first, because the running back position is the most volatile. The research I find does not say that. If anything, they're equally volatile. But anyway,
I think Jonathan most Taylor, of those experts are idiots anyway.
Well, I have. We're going to get into some draft strategy since it's draft season, and I have some. I have an interesting one to bring up. But first, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs. How worried are you? Are you worried at all? Are you really worried for one, not the other one? How are you feeling about those two guys? Neither one is with their team.
Let me preface it again. Somebody talked about the other day. I have a hard time feeling bad for people who are upset, torn apart, threatening to quit over only making $10.1 million a year. It's a hard sell for the average person like us. Again, somebody who sometimes goes to work 80 hours a week and will not make $10.1 million in his entire lifetime. So it's a hard sell me. But besides that point, Jonathan Taylor, I think, will play. I think he'll be pissy, but I think he'll do his thing. Josh Jacobs, I'm starting to wonder if he, his agent, whoever, what other idiots are around him, have really convinced him that this is a good idea to just not play. Because I think Zamir White will be just fine, and I think the team will be just fine without him. He had one good year. Other years were so-so. I mean, you were so poor that your team didn't even pick up your fifth-year option. They're actually, I think, paying more now by having a franchise than if they would just picked up his option. And you're going to whine and cry about it. A guy who grew up living in a at times, he said he and his family lived in a car. Mm-hmm. And it's how quick can people lose touch with reality? It's very odd to me.
Almost immediately, it seems like.
Yeah, it seems that way. And if it's shown anything here, the owners, the coaches, everything, they just don't care about running back. So what is it that you're trying to prove when they've made it very clear you are expendable? Why would you go and say, yes, I am? Why would you agree? Why would you say, I'll show you, buddy?
So I'm actually a little worried about both of them. They say Jonathan Taylor is out right now for personal reasons, but he's also, I guess, still rehabbing his ankle that he injured last season. That doesn't make me feel good. Also, having a rookie quarterback starting week one, the history does not bode well for the playmakers on teams that normally wear.
The thing is, he's in a tough spot. He has zero leverage. Not that Jacobs really has any either. If he doesn't play, he doesn't get told over. So he has to play his final year next year.
Right.
If he isn't back by week 10. Jacobs, at least next year, they'd have to start this whole thing over again. Right. I wouldn't call it leverage, but it's at least a different situation.
Yes. And Jacobs is the same way. At least he's not hurt though. And I think that with Jacobs, hopefully when he comes back, it's not if, hopefully when they're going to do the same thing they did last year and run him ragged because they can. He's a 1-year rental and he led the league in rushing last year.
Yeah.
You might as well get absolutely every yard out of him that you can. But it's both of these situations. I don't like it. Jonathan Taylor's dropping. Let me check his ADP real quick.
I think he was like 15th now. Well,
Yeah,
overall. 15th overall, number 6 running back.
When all of this started, he was, I mean, we're pushing top 6, top 7 pick. And that's not the case now. Now he's going second round. And Josh Jacobs is going towards the end of the second, almost into the third. And I get it. I would be very leery taking Jonathan Taylor at pick 15. Now it could pay off big time, but man, it could bite you in the butt.
I think it depends what you got in the first round.
True.
But it could bite you big time. But then again, he might decide, you know what, whatever. Me and what's Irsay made up, and he goes out and rushes for 1,600 yards. Do we think that's going to happen? Most likely not, but might.
And that's in both of these guys' wheelhouses. Like they've both done it before.
It is. I'd be very surprised if Josh Jacobs equals what he did last year. Even if he does his thing and he's happy, whatever, I'd be really surprised. Jonathan Taylor, if he stays healthy, I think definitely could do it. And we don't know, man. This new offense with Anthony Richardson, it might be a blessing in disguise because it's going to be a different type of offense. You're right. A lot of teams with the new quarterback, running back struggles, but they might pattern this whole thing off a lot of RPO type stuff and see how it goes. And it could end up being huge for him. He could end up being like a Dobbins and Gus type thing where the running back's the beneficiary of the whole thing.
I do appreciate that Le'Veon Bell came out maybe like 2-3 weeks ago and put out a video and said, man, I really wish I wouldn't have held out that year.
Yep.
So I'm hoping these guys watch that video and they take some notes.
Yeah, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And people are saying, well, Irsay's a jerk. Who wants to play for him? Like, guess what? 99% of people hate their boss, but we work anyway because we don't have a choice.
And he's making business decisions. It's
that's what he's doing. These guys are
right.
making personal decisions. He's making
right.
business decisions.
Correct.
It seems like a losing battle for these running backs because the whole point of this again is that the owners are pretty much and GMs are saying you're expendable. So why prove it to them? Why? What happens if Josh Jacobs doesn't play and Zamir White goes out and he has 1,200 yards rushing and 12 touchdowns? It's going to prove to everybody Jacobs wasn't really that great. It's just a product of the team. And then he's going to get even less money next year.
Yeah, I know. It's a mess. Probably not as big of a mess as the Eagles backfield. I want to talk about it now, but
that's not a mess. What are you talking about? A mess?
We should wait another week. The Eagles don't even know what they're doing.
I know, but it doesn't matter. It's great for the Eagles. It just sucks for fantasy.
If one of these guys came out to be the lead dog, it would be great for fantasy, I think.
Yeah, but we don't know who that might be. I'm just saying in general, we've got to be clear here that for the Eagles, you got 3 guys that could all start in any given week.
I know.
For fantasy, it blows, but for the Eagles, that's what a great problem to have.
Gainwell looks good, man. He's really coming into his own.
He never puts up bad numbers when he's on the field. He typically does well. Him and your boy Boston Scott.
Oh, stop it! I hate him. Did you watch any of the Eagles-Browns game last night?
No, as you know, I don't watch any preseason because it just warps my thoughts on some players, and I don't like that.
It's so crazy because Rashad Penny, I thought was definitely going to be the guy, and maybe he is, but he doesn't even get in the game till like midway through the second quarter, and his first carry goes for 16 yards. He's so good, and I know he's going against backups, but he also has backups blocking for him.
Yeah,
but I have no idea what's going on here.
Why can you put why? What is wrong with you? Why or would you put any stock in a stupid, meaningless, useless preseason game?
It's not necessarily how they perform, but the usage. Like, for example, Kenny Gainwell was in there first, got a couple plays, and that was it. So
yeah, but it means nothing. There's players that won't play the one snap. Does that mean you're gonna you're going to take Mark Andrews and drop him from your team week 1 because you're pretty sure he's not playing because he didn't play in the preseason. It doesn't make sense.
The exact opposite, actually. If they don't play at all, that's because they don't want to be exposed to
And
injury.
you should be happy that Penny's going in second. They don't want to overuse him, and because they plan on starting him.
Correct. And that is why this is such a mess. Because
why am I friends with you? Because
any idea what's happening.
You are John Kerry in the flesh. You flip-flop in the middle of your own paragraph. It's good for one player, but not the other. You drive me nuts. So why don't you just stop watching preseason football and wasting everyone's time?
I usually don't have to dumb things down for you, but I'll do it this time. In the preseason, the earlier a player plays, preferably they don't play at all because they don't need to show what they have. The team knows we're good. However, normally after that, and now this is normally. This isn't every
normally. Yeah, here we go.
For example,
here we go.
Last year, Josh Jacobs infamously played in the most of the game in the Hall of Fame game, and then he went on to lead the league in rushing. That is a rare occurrence.
Gotcha.
Maybe that's the only time that's ever happened.
Maybe. I'll have to look that up.
A lot of times when a team has, let's say a running back, if your lead dog, Nick Chubb didn't play a snap, doesn't have to. We know it's Nick Chubb. But then you see who goes in next for the Browns. Is it John Kelly? Is it Demetric Felton? Jerome Ford's hurt, so it couldn't be him. But you see the progression of when they get put in. Normally, again, not every time, Kevin, but normally the guys that go in first, it's sort of like that's how the depth chart plays out. So that would mean Penny would be.
Yeah, I don't buy any of that because they play 4 preseason games, and every game different guys are going in at different times.
Is it half
of them are cut? Half of them are cut by the 4th game.
People are saying Penny might get cut.
I think this is great only because it's warped your mind about the Eagles, and anytime that you get to sweat about the Eagles, that makes me feel good. So I think you've talked yourself into this to a certain point. Because you love to be freaked out about the Eagles and you want us all to join you in your freaking misery.
Misery loves company, Kevin.
That's what I'm saying. So you concoct this web of madness, NFL madness and chaos in your mind just to make others as frantic as you are.
Hop on board the train, Kevin.
I'm not jumping, baby.
We're way out of
I don't watch preseason football because it's useless.
A lot of times watching in-season football is useless. Yelling at what is coaches doing?
I can't argue that. How about that Al Michaels the other day going again in an interview saying, yeah, I said the Thursday night slate of games sucked last year. I stand by it. It did suck. Did you notice that the Thursday night games don't suck this year?
Look, double down, man.
Yeah,
if you believe
the man. He's like, they obviously listened.
Right. Yeah, but hopefully that doesn't backfire, and it's not necessarily the teams. It's just the day.
Teams.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to some of our top draft strategies since it is mid-August. My gosh, it's past mid-August. Good grief.
Yeah, it's the 18th.
And let's talk about some of our favorite draft strategies. You want to go first?
I don't really have favorite draft strategies because draft strategies are also fluid. So I don't really know what to say about a favorite one because, as you know, I no longer even do any type of snake redraft, any time of straight league anymore. Mine are all, well, the 2 that I do now, both that I run are my auction dynasty league, which is chaotic, and then of course the ones and done where there is no draft. So in my league, my number one thing is, most of the guys in the league do not look into the future, even though it's a dynasty league. Whereas we know from this very show that I've set myself up for domination starting last year. And I hope it continues through next Friday when we have our draft.
So let's talk about auction drafts. We can do that one first.
Okay.
And I want to see how you feel about this. One very common strategy that people use is they nominate players they don't want. So they'll nominate players that they don't want so that everyone else spends all of their money on those players.
Well, I do that constantly.
Okay. I do it as well, but I also will. I don't want my opponents to know well, Bobby's drafting now. Whoever he's picking, he doesn't want. So I will throw out certain players that I
Oh,
want.
yeah. Yeah, I do that too. But no, what I want to do early, like my first one in this draft, I forget where I am because its nomination goes in reverse order from last year. So, but it is a nomination. If you got money, you can have any player you want. I'll put out a really big name player that I know go for a lot of money that I 100% am not touching, just to fill a spot and just to get somebody to spend $60 on a player I wouldn't spend 40 on, and
get them broke early.
wasting money. The issue is you don't know what they're going to do. And in a 16-team league, there's guys I'm hoping will drop and drop and drop. Last year, a prime example was Dameon Pierce. I was hoping nobody would put him out there early. Somebody put him up really early in like the second round. He ended up going for like $33, where I was hoping I could snag him up lucky for like 15. But no, he got put out early, so there was a lot of money out there.
For me, I think drafting with tiers is important. So if you don't know what tiers are, you take all your running backs or your wide receivers, whatever the position is, and you tier them together. So it's sort of like, my RB7 to my RB11, they're kind of the same guy. You could flip flop this order, and I wouldn't really worry too much. I think that's even more important in an auction league because the players go at random, and it can sneak up on you. So because they're not going to go in order. CMC is not going to be the first, Eckler second, Bijan third. However, the running backs ADPs rank, that's not how they come off the board in an auction league. So having your tiers in front of you, I think, is so important, because as you scratch off, you say, holy cow, I didn't realize it. I only have one guy left in my second tier running backs. And by then your whole third tier might be gone with how the guys are getting nominated. So, like, I got to get this guy. And it allows you to focus on players when you need to, and not miss out on whole tiers, because auctions, that can happen to you in an auction league.
Right. You have to have target numbers for any player you might want. Some of them end up going for higher than that, and sometimes you'll even keep bidding. Other times they go for lower, and then you definitely want to get the guy, but you have another guy that you've really been targeting. But if you get this guy, even though it's a deal, there's no way you're going to get the other guy. It's like a total. It just, I don't know. It just screws with your mind. It's complicated. Like I said, I told you earlier, I only had 4 slots of my whole team even to draft anybody. I got a boatload of money. There's a few people I'm targeting, and if I don't get them, I don't really have a backup plan right now, because this was over a year long strategy. So I got to hope that it continues to play out like it did last year when it worked out to a T.
Knowing that some of your league mates listen to the show, would you like to share some of your strategies you plan on implementing?
I will not. But they can look at the money. They can see I have $117 for 4 players. They're not stupid. They know what's coming. It's just, and that's another huge thing we do in an auction, where you can't do it in a regular draft. We have guys, I'm one of them, gamesmanship. I'll run up a price on a player just to screw with you. You think you're getting a 52 with 3 seconds left on a thing? Nope, 53. You think you're getting a 54? Nope, 55. Just to screw with people. But you have to be careful.
Yes.
Because once in a while you might get stuck, but that's actually fairly rare, because the person usually knows what's happening. They know that you are literally just running up the price a little bit, but that adds up. 17 slots, only $250 fictional dollars. $3 on this player, $4 on that player. It adds up really quick.
Sure. So you mentioned right when we started this conversation that you don't really have draft strategies because it's all fluid, and that is exactly what my first and probably my number one draft strategy is to always stay fluid. There are too many times that people go into drafts with their minds made up. I'm taking a running back in the first round, or I'm taking Patrick Mahomes, or I'm going to wait on tight end. Whatever it is, you can't be tied to it. Yes, having an idea of the approach you want to take is good, but you have to be mindful of players that fall in your draft. So, and knowing your league mates is another draft strategy, but that's important too, because, you can go in thinking, all right, I know these guys, they're going to go running backs early. So I'm probably going to look at wide receiver in the first round or second round. Again, you're going into it with that mindset, but you can't stick to it. And I mentioned this earlier. There's one guy in the industry who I actually really like. I listen to him as often as I can. He says to stay fluid, but out the other side of his mouth, he's completely hypocritical because he's a big fan of the hero RB strategy. And that's sort of like a newer thing where you draft a running back in the first or the second round. He's your quote hero. And then you focus on other positions. He has said multiple times, because I thought he said it once and I'm like, well, maybe he just, slid with the tongue. No, multiple times. If he grabs a running back in the first or second round, he said he refuses to even look at the position until later in the draft, 6th, 7th round, whatever it is. That is silly, because if let's say I'm in the 4th round and all of a sudden, whoever, Derrick Henry drops to the end of the 3rd round. I mean, we always had these crazy things happen in our drafts. If you're not even looking at the running back position, you just screwed yourself, shot yourself in the foot. I mean, I get the strategy you're going for and what you're trying to do. And zero RB and hero RB, it's very popular these days, but you cannot just put your blinders on and just close-mindedly follow something that you want to do. You have to pay attention to the draft. You have to stay fluid.
You have to. There's always that one guy in the league that takes somebody 4 rounds early, takes a quarterback with the 3rd pick. That throws off everything behind it. You've been at number 7 targeting a guy the whole time. But then all of a sudden, Mr. Donator number 2 decides with the 3rd pick to take Patrick Mahomes. Now, all of a sudden, that guy you want at 7th could potentially drop to 8th because the guy that was 6th that you thought you never had a chance is now at 7th. So now you have, why would you ever, that makes no sense. Why you ever would just say, I don't care what happens. I don't care if Barry Sanders is there at the end of the 7th round. I'm not touching that guy. Sad thing is he probably started on half the teams in the league right now, but nonetheless, that's just asinine. That's
I know
that's like a Donator move.
I really like this guy too, and I hate that. And if you listen to Sirius XM radio, I mean, if you listen, you might be able to figure out who it is. And my other one's pretty simple. Know your league. Well, it seems simple, but know your league settings and scoring. It seems crazy. Too many people, they pay no attention to what's going on. I mean, something as simple as if you start 2 wide receivers versus starting 3, because that extra wide receiver adds extra value to that position in the draft. Is your league PPR, half PPR, standard? I mean, someone like your boy Amon-Ra St. Brown, he has tremendous value in a PPR league, right? Getting all these catches, all these targets.
He's dreaming.
Right. But he's less exciting in a standard league where you don't get any points for catches because he's not blowing you out of the water with his yards and his touchdowns. Are you in a 10-man league, 12-team, 16-team league? All these things matter. You got to pay attention. One of the leagues I run, it's a 14-teamer. Got everybody in a group text. I get questions all the time like, what is this? Is this PPR? Is this how many teams are in this thing? Like,
look at the screen,
site, man.
Look at the screen. Read the rules.
I know. You have an app. It's on your phone. Like, it's wild.
It's going to be interesting in my league of record this year because for the first time ever, we took the minimum salary up from $2 for a player to $3. Mm-hmm. And I've said it over and over again. We instituted this before last season, so everybody had a full season to understand this was coming. You can't pretend like it was just thrown on you. We decided this like June of 2022 that this was going to happen. Guarantee you we're going to go on the draft and people are going to be freaked out that they can't nominate a player for $2. And then even after that, once the season gets going, they're going to be freaked out that they can't get a player for under $3. And I'm going to be getting texts about it. And I'm just like, do you pay any attention, Mr. Donator number 4? I mean, I don't get it. It's so odd.
I know.
At least know the rules. I'm not asking you to put, make it your part-time job. How hard is it to read the rules?
I'm with
Apparently
you.
Very difficult.
I'm with you 1,000%.
I'm looking forward to this $3 salary because not only does it make you automatically have $17 extra you need to spend, but the salary cap infractions, the 25% now, a minimum will be 75 cents if you if you dump a player that was only a $3. So all that stuff's going to add up quick during the season. I'm excited to see them all piss their pants.
Well, and it helps whenever you know what's going on, right? And
that's the thing. We don't have rule changes like that that aren't a minimum of a full season out. So you're right. Since I'm the commissioner, obviously I know everything. Because as you know, during this season, this league I run is like a 10, 12 hour a week of stuff. I have to endless Excel sheets, endless making sure everything's right. And it's not 10 to 12 hours, but like probably 5 to 6 hours that I have to put in. So I know the whole league inside and out. But others, I don't expect you to do that, but at least know the rules.
Oh,
it's not rocket science. You just read them. They're right on the screen. So I have the scrolling thing going across the screen. $3 minimum play for a player next season.
And they're easily accessible.
And it's not even accessible. You just look at the screen. It's scrolling right across the screen. It's hard to miss. So if you didn't read it for 5 months straight, then that's on you, not me.
So let's dive into a little ADP talk. We'll wrap up the show with a couple guys here that stand out to me. And one person that you mentioned right before we hopped on air here was Deshaun Watson. He is currently going as QB9, pick 82. And tell me how you feel about Deshaun Watson. Obviously, he had a horrendous season last year. Now, I think his last 2 games or so, he started putting things together. Things started clicking for him, but he was not good.
He did. His last year, he had 5 touchdowns. He was still 9 for 18, 19 for 29, 169, 230 yards, no rushing points. The way he looked last year and the way they're saying he looks right now, that he can't complete a pass more than 10 yards down the field. Why would anybody want him as your starting quarterback? I could see stashing him in case he turns things around, but as the number 9, 82 overall, I can't take him at the end of the end of the 7th round. I don't get it.
I don't think
3 years ago that'd be the steal from hell, but this isn't 3 years ago. Then he got a series of happy endings and now has made a not happy ending in his NFL career.
That is great analytical work there. I'm with you. I was higher on him when they started. I have had him at my QB9. I don't know where he's going to finish. He's not going to finish there. I think what we do is, back before all of this nonsense happened, he was QB5, I think, 3 years in a row.
Oh, yeah.
And he has shown us and put it on the field, put it on paper, fantasy quarterback. I mean, every single year,
put it
top
on
5.
Some small cloths.
And then it all went downhill. And granted, he had a good game or 2 last year. He hasn't put it together this year. He's had a whole offseason. Like you said,
awful.
He's
got good receivers.
I know. And I get
good
that
tight end, great running back. The better supporting cast than he ever had in Houston.
I want him to go I want him to be my backup, like you said, but it's not going to happen because someone's going to take that plunge on him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to get him. So, and I'm okay with that. He could pay off, but it's not going to be on my team, I don't think.
Yeah, simply because in my league, he was drafted last year and given a long-term contract as this person's backup. So it's actually a great deal. I think he has it for $6 this year, which I'd do that because a $6 player is like a guy you're drafting in the 14th round in a draft. So I'll do that all day long. But so this guy might end up drafting another starter next week. But yeah, I'm not big on him. Tough division too.
Oh yeah, and weather. I mean, he's not playing in Houston.
No,
8 games a year anymore.
I think that matters.
I do too. All right. Next guy I want to bring up. We're going to go to the running back position, and it's going to be someone that I posted about on Twitter and on our Facebook page the other day. I said Tony Pollard, who is currently RB8 right now, pick 17 overall, so right in the middle of the second. Tony Pollard is this year's Gabe Davis. And what I meant by that is he is getting all of the hype. And he is going to, in my opinion, flounder that and not live up to expectations whatsoever. If we remember, Gabe Davis was going, I mean, people were drafting him in like wide receiver 13, wide receiver 14
Your boy
off the
Whitey.
board. Right. We made a bet last year.
And Whitey still is not paid up, correct?
That's correct. He is not, but that's okay. It'll be all right.
No, it's not. That's what Whitey does. When he wins a bet, he's the first person to call and text you about it. When he loses, he just magically he forgets.
It's all good. We'll hold him accountable one day. But I just can't buy into Pollard. He was unbelievably efficient last year with his touches. When he's in the past, when he's been giving the role, if Zeke's missed any time, he's done well. He can score from anyone on the field. He's very explosive. But when I have audio recording of him when they're trying to make him a workhorse and he's on his own sideline and he says, I can't do this, boy, that really makes me want to pump the brakes. And
it does.
When part of the reason he was so efficient is because he's not getting the full workload. And maybe he won't. Maybe they'll put in one of their other great running backs they have on their team, like Malik Davis or Rico Dowdle. Maybe the 5'5" Deuce Vaughn will be the guy. It's not like they're rolling in here with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt.
No.
You know,
he's going to have to play. What it says here, last year he finished as RB7, ranked outside the top 25 in touches per game.
Right. When I'm talking about efficiency, I'm talking this dude was one of the most efficient running backs easily last year.
PFF's only third ranked running back though. Yeah, the dude's a beast. What's that?
You said he was the third ranked
PFF ranked him as their number 3 back for last year.
It's still, I mean, that's great.
Oh yeah.
But to your, and I know he was splitting work with Zeke and all that stuff, but RB 56, RB 3, RB 28, 65, 21, 29, 23, 4, 8, 1, 40. So that goes to your argument that you've had for other players. But for me, man, I don't see him being able to handle all of the workload, all of the snap share week in and week out. That's going to be the problem, is not necessarily the consistency of the scoring, because obviously he's going to be all over the map, like I mentioned, with Ezekiel Elliott in the building. But I mean, he's handling 54% of snaps, 56% of snaps. If you start giving him the rock, or if he starts handling 60, 70, 80% of the snaps, they don't have anyone behind him. He's going to have to do that. And I just don't see him keeping that efficiency up.
Well, he's going mid-second round.
I can't do it.
He's going mid-second round. You get there. You're at the number 17 or 18 pick. Would you take him or Stevenson?
I'm taking Stevenson. I think he's a safer pick.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. Him or Jahmyr Gibbs.
Higher, but I don't think he's hitting his ceiling.
Him or Jahmyr Gibbs.
I think they're the same player. Except Gibbs has someone else to. Gibbs is last year's Tony Pollard.
Right.
Where he's got David Montgomery to handle the heavy lifting, and then he can just scat back himself to 45-yard touchdowns every other week. That's what Tony Pollard did last year.
Yeah, that's a good 60-yard swing pass and run it in.
That's a good comp right there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just can't do it.
Again, honestly, I'm coming off of a major injury. I know it's not an ACL, but still, even that. The thing we loved about Pollard, because as much as we're sort of getting on right now, you and I don't know how many times we've texted each other watching a Cowboys game, is Pollard is easily the most explosive player on the field. Offense, defense, both teams.
Yep.
The second he loses 10% of that, he's not Tony Pollard anymore.
So Derrick Henry is going at 16, Pollard at 17, Devontae Adams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I would rather have all three of those guys over Pollard.
Likewise.
Henry, Adams, St. Brown.
You wouldn't even have to think twice about it in a heartbeat.
Not correct.
That said, I wouldn't bet my house that Pollard won't beat all three of them. but I'm not taking that chance.
There it is. There it is. Not for him, not for, I mean, good grief. You said yourself you can't handle the workload.
Yeah, that's man, talk about a red flag. Sorry, coach, I can't go in. I'm too tired.
Right. Dude. Oh,
that's tough.
Listen, I'm a nobody. In high school, I was a starting running back and a starting free safety. There were times, you can see it on film, my hands are on my knees in the backfield. I'm about to get a carry. It's like my 26th carry of the game. I can't breathe. I can't hardly walk. I certainly didn't ask to be subbed out.
Yeah.
Probably should have.
The last thing you want to do is be doing that on the sideline, watching one of your buddies do it.
Right. Exactly.
So
I'd rather go there and just die.
This
3 yards down.
is the LeBron generation, buddy. Load management.
No. All right. One more guy for you. You ready?
Go for it.
Mike Evans. Current wide receiver 32. I repeat, Mike Evans, the wide receiver who's had 1,000 yards every single season of his
arguably
career.
The greatest start to an NFL wide receiver career ever.
How could you ask for more, honestly? Wide receiver 32. How do you feel going after Michael Pittman Jr., whose quarterback is Anthony Richardson? Rookie.
Christian Kirk, who now has Calvin Ridley there. Brandon Ayuk. Mike Williams, who will play 7 games. Drake London.
Christian Watson? Dude. All right. How do you feel about it?
I don't like it. I agree. He should be much higher.
Okay. So where do you have Mike Evans?
I don't, because I won't touch him. But
okay. All right. So no, you know what? You don't have
to. If I had to, I'd put him probably right around 20.
Okay. So you would take, let's see, Terry McLaurin or Mike Williams?
Oh, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Williams?
Mike Evans.
Mike
Evans. Okay. Over McLaurin. So Keenan Allen or Mike Evans?
I don't trust Sam Howell.
Sure.
The same reason I don't trust Mike Evans now is because of the quarterback situation.
Okay. Keenan Allen or Mike Evans?
I'm taking Mike Evans just because he'll play twice the number of games.
Amari Cooper or Mike Evans?
Things get tricky there.
So is that your line?
They're mute for me. That'd be a toss-up.
Okay. So that's wide receiver 18. Amari Cooper's wide receiver 18. So you're right. He'd be right around your wide receiver 20. Yeah. What about DeAndre Hopkins? He's wide receiver 21.
And they're about the same. I think I'd rather go with D-Hop because I think Tannehill's going to force feed him the ball, especially if Traylon Burks is out for a significant period of time.
Yeah, right. I currently have Evans as my wide receiver 23, but I could see that going up. If he's going to go anywhere, he's certainly not going to go down. But regardless, I have him lower than you, and I have him 9 spots lower than ADP. It's crazy. I get
have
it.
him
It's
lower
Baker
than
Mayfield.
Godwin. Doesn't he pretty much outperform Chris Godwin like every year except one? Yet Godwin always goes higher.
Always. Godwin's also going to run a lot of his routes out of the slot, and he's closer line of scrimmage. So we think Baker Mayfield's going to be more accurate throwing to Godwin. That's always same with Tom Brady, right? He throws those short passes, so it's going to be Godwin.
Yeah, but Evans still outperforms him.
Dude, well, I'm glad that we found some common ground on this episode before getting out of here.
We have lots of common ground, buddy. We're geniuses.
Well, I'd argue if I could. Anything else to add, my friend? We're going to do another show. When we're going to try to get early next week?
Yeah, that's cool. We can do one before my draft.
Say it again.
My draft is next Friday night, so it'd have to be before that.
Mm-hmm.
We should be able to sneak something in.
Sure. All right. We'll just let me know. We'll keep everybody posted. I'm just excited to be back in this.
I wanted to ask you something.
Yes,
was
sir.
Cushwa open when you still lived here? The brewing company I'm in Williamsport, right down the street from your school.
It may have opened right before I left.
Okay. They make the singular greatest beer ever known to mankind.
Are they sponsoring us?
No, we should ask them.
School snack. Nice.
Peanut butter and jelly sour.
Really?
You can't drink a better beer.
Interesting.
They're expensive, $20 a 4-pack, but you just don't care because they only brew it once in a while, and they don't even distribute it. You have to go there to get it because Cushwa distributes to all kinds of liquor stores all around the area now. But dude, I picked up a case today. Heaven. It's just true heaven.
Nice.
So I wanted to throw it on there just to see if you had ever had it, because since you worked right down the street from there, I didn't know if you had ever been there or not.
Nope. Real quick, last thing, I want to ring your bell here. Get your bell rung, right? I was listening to the Fantasy Footballers today, and they were talking about the Trey Lance trade very, very briefly. The Dolphins, according to the Fantasy Footballers, and I haven't dug into the research to back it up and confirm this, but by the 49ers trading up to get Lance, out of that trade, the Dolphins were able to acquire Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and Bradley Chubb.
Pretty nice. Hasn't amounted to anything yet except some pretty stats.
Yeah, but good grief.
But I guess we'll find out. The Trey Lance, he just got dumped in my league of record.
Well, of course.
Why shouldn't he? He's a backup. Does nothing.
Right. Third string.
One thing I want to touch on next week is we'll discuss real quick the Once and Done League to see if anybody that listens wants to possibly join us this year.
Yep. And a couple more draft strategies for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, folks. Thanks for listening. Glad we're back. Check us out on Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, and occasionally Twitter. At GYBR_podcast. And I'm sorry, not Twitter, X now.
Yeah, it is the X now.
Because why not?
Okay, buddy. All right. See y'all.
See you, buddy. See ya.